Hey everyone, it's time for 15.2 of Murach's Visual Basic 2015, which is building the Customer Invoice Display application. So again, we are going to create a new project, Windows Form App.NET Framework Visual Basic. The name is your last name, exercise 15.2, project and solution in the same directory. .NET Framework 4.7, whatever your latest one is, that's great. Click on create, and then we need to create a data source from that database that we've been using. So I think this is like the 4th time we've done this, so I'm not going to walk through these steps very slowly. And we need the tables and columns that are shown in 15.14. So 15.14 is showing us that we're using the customers and the invoices tables. That's what I need. In my Solution Explorer, choose the database, go to Properties, copy to Output Directory, if newer, and that was step 1. Step 2, drag the columns in the customers table onto the form as text boxes. So we need details here. And you drag that on as shown, and adjust them as shown in figure 15.13. So we do not need customer ID. I'm just going to get rid of that. Instead of city, we say city, state, zip, which means state and zip go away. The labels, that is. State's just 2 characters wide. And this is the customer display application. So all of these fields are set to read only, because all it's doing is showing us the customer. It is not allowing us to edit the customer. So I'll take this and just put it around here somewhere right now. That's fine. Then, I'm still in step 2, drag the invoices table that's subordinate to the customers table. So here we have the customers table, here we have the invoices table, and we're dragging this over as a data grid view. So not this invoices table, but this one. Drag that on. Make it a little bit bigger. And at this point, we actually have a function in the application. Hit F5, let it run, and here it is. I can bounce through my customers, and nothing's happening down here because these first few customers actually don't have invoices. But when I get to customer 10, this table is filled up with the invoices from customer 10. And there's customer 11's invoices and 12's. So if for some reason this table is not populating, then you probably did not drag over the correct invoices table. It's the one that's subordinate to the customers table, not the actual invoices table here. All right, delete the binding navigator toolbar along with the event handler for the click event of the save button. And I'm actually going to do this in the opposite order because it'll make more sense for me. So I'm going to double click on the save button to get to that click event, and it wants us to delete it. And then I'm going to take the toolbar and delete it. All right, and then comment out the code in the load event handler for the form that fills the customer table. So where we fill the customer table, comment that out. And then create a parameterized query named fill by customer ID. Add query, and we did this back in 15.1. If for some reason you haven't done 15.1 yet, go back and do that first. Call it fill by customer ID. Filter is customer ID. Hit OK. That looks good. There we go. Now when I run it, remember we commented out the loading on the or filling the table on mybase.load, so we have nothing here. But if I put in customer 10, fill by customer ID, there we go. Okay, so that was step 4. Step 5, view the procedures in 15.9 and 15.10 to disable editing, adding, editing, and deleting rows. So right here in this, I'm going to say don't enable editing, adding, editing, deleting. Get rid of those things. And then I need to go into the columns. So I'm going to delete the customer ID column, because of course if I look up customer 10, I know it's customer 10. I don't need to see that 100 times here. And then we're going to set the width of invoice ID, sales tax, and shipping to 80. Invoice ID width 80. What did I say? Sales tax and shipping. And to modify the text in the column headings. So again, this is looking at 15.10. I just want to review this real quick before I make these changes. Yeah, we're just taking these and putting spaces in here so they look good. All right. And that is the, excuse me, the header text property of these columns. All right, set the formatting for the invoice date column. So it's shown, displayed as shown in 15.13, which is just like a short date. So we're going to click on the invoice date column, click on the default cell style, click on the ... behavior, format, ... date time, short date format, which is the first one there. Say OK. And then set the formatting for product total, sales tax, shipping, and invoice total to columns with numeric, 2 decimal places, alignment middle right. Whew, all right. So product total. Numeric with 2 decimal places. I think the alignment's in here too. Yep, here's the alignment. Middle right. Okay. So now we're going to run the application again. Make sure everything looks good. That looks much better. So, you know, middle right, middle refers to the vertical alignment, right is the horizontal alignment, so everything's lined up. So your decimal points are lined up, the date looks good. We got rid of the customer ID column, and I cannot edit this information. Right, I can still click on the column headings and sort and everything, but I cannot edit any of this information, which is great. That's what we want. So this box is a little big right now. I'm going to take this and shrink it in a little bit, maybe tighten things up a little bit. Tighten that up. I don't really have that many invoices all the time. Okay, so now we're on step 6, review the mybase.load event handler. And what you see here is, well, we already commented out the customers table, we don't fill that, but what we do is we load all of the invoices into our invoice table adapter as soon as the application loads, right? So as soon as I run this application, I have all the invoices loaded, even though I have no customers loaded, and I haven't even looked at a single customer yet, right? And our application doesn't have 100,000 invoices, but maybe someday it will. And it's a waste of memory to do this, to load all those invoices when we don't need all of them. If I'm just going to look at invoices for customer 10, I only need to load these 5 invoices. And I should load them, when I ask for them, not when the application loads, load all of them. So we're going to change that. All right, so we're going to go back to our form designer. I'm going to click on the smart tag, and I'm going to create a parameterized query called fill by customer ID on the data grid view control. So this is fill by customer ID. Go into my query builder. Filter is customer ID. Make sure that customer ID filter is on the customer ID row. When I click down here, you can see the SQL has changed. So it's going to select everything from the invoices where the customer ID equals the given customer ID. Make sure that's called fill by customer ID. Okay. So now I actually have 2 nav toolbars here. This first one is going to fill this by customer ID, and the second one actually pulls this by customer ID, and we don't really want that. I want to take the code here that's filling the invoices table, and I'm going to run this. So the idea is that if I put in customer 10, it fills in this information with customer 10, and then it also runs the same thing as if 10 were here and someone clicked on fill by customer. It fills the data grid with 10. But I want it to happen all at once. So I'm going to take the invoice table adapter. I'm going to cut that out of here, and I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to come back here and delete my second tool strip. So I have 1 tool strip, and when you put in a customer ID, it runs this one, right? This is what we had originally. But look, this is underlined in red. Why? Because this field's gone now. This was referring to the old text box. So let's just make sure we use the same text box. And then, again, this sub-procedure now is not an event handler anymore. It's not handling anything. It's not being called at all. So we can get rid of that old one. And maybe this will help too. If I take this field, customer ID, and I'm going to rename it to txt customer ID. And this is btn fill by customer ID. I'm going to call it get customer as well. I'm going to take this customer ID, and probably somewhere it wanted me to clean that up, but I didn't. All right, now let's look at the code. So remember, I renamed this to txt customer ID. And you can see that the btn fill by customer ID, when you click that, it's pulling now the txt customer ID.txt. All right, so it's going to take that customer ID 10, convert it to an integer, pass it to this fill by customer ID on the table, on the customers, and then do the same thing on the invoices. So we don't need to load all the invoices anymore. We can comment that out. And actually, we've commented out all 4 lines of this mybase.load, so let's just get rid of it. It's not doing anything. And this is what we're left with. If I hit F5, the application loads, and if you watched earlier, this memory was actually higher, maybe slightly, but it was higher last time when we actually loaded all of the invoices. Now when I say, give me customer 9, it just gives me customer 9. And now I say, give me customer 11, or 10. 10 was the one we were working with. Here's the customer. Again, these are read-only fields, so I can't do anything with it. Here's their invoices. So it only loads those invoices when I request them for that customer instead of loading them all at once. All right, so that was it. Just make sure it all looks good. You know, something like the form, instead of calling it Form 1, call it Customer Invoice Display. You notice that like whenever my start position, I always drag it to the middle of the screen. Just make it start in the center of the screen. So that's it. That is 15.2. Go ahead, save it, zip it, send it in.